Hello, I'm Michael Boyajian, and I'm going to be talking about my Armenian titles in my collection of writings that I have written. And, when we were growing up as kids, we never knew anything about our history, who our heroes were. We just knew like basic things and just did not know. It was absolutely unknown. Fast forward to a few years ago, and I'm reading many Roman Britain books. And I think after about the 15th one, I said, wait a minute here. If they could write this many books on Roman Britain, couldn't someone write one book on Roman Armenia? So I took out my Kindle, and it doesn't work with the tablet, but with the Kindle, you can do this. And what I did is I pumped in the words Roman Armenia and search. I did a search of my entire library of Kindle books, and before, when Kindle first came out, you can get a lot of the ancient books for free, or for a few pennies, but so my Kindle holds about every ancient book written, which is quite incredible, but no sooner did I hit the search button than up came hundreds of citations of Roman Armenia. Probably the most important one was Herodotus speaking well before the Romans. The first historian, in fact, the Greek historian Herodotus, spent a lot of time in his histories book speaking about the Armenians. So for me, that's a pretty incredible thing to be included in a book by the first historian, Herodotus. And then, motoring through it, I found out that the Romans and the Armenians went at it for 10 years and to a standstill, which is quite incredible considering how powerful the Roman Empire was. So the Armenians did pretty good. After 10 years, the king of Armenia assumed that that was it. They were leaving. But no, the Romans never just leave. They changed commanders, and Pompey the Great was sent in, and it came to the point where the Armenian king had to come to terms with Pompey, and Pompey said, give me your kingdom, and the king complied, and then the Pompey the Great said, you are the king of kings, I give you back your kingdom, plus all this other territory, and you have a friend with Rome forever. Okay? And we are one of the few ancient peoples to survive contact with the Romans. And that's part of the story. Okay, so anyhow, a nice person called up the other day saying if I could help the Armenians. And I'm like, well, since my wife Jerry passed away, I really can't do much, but I have been helping the Armenians, starting with that Roman Armenian book, but basically teaching the Armenians, rebuilding their culture that was destroyed during the genocide. And I just kept going and going and going through history. The Armenians and Alexander the Great. And I had help from a lot of people there who I'd like to thank. Thank you, everybody who lent a helping hand out there with some of these titles, like the Armenians in India, the New Jalfa Indian Armenians. What else is there? The Byzantine Armenians. I could just keep going. You name a major epic in the history of the world, and I've got the Armenians in there somehow. Quite amazing. And right up to, becoming a Christian nation, and the king of Armenia meets with the Roman emperor, Constantine, and they're both, Constantine, he was not Christian yet, but his Roman Empire was becoming Christian. They didn't become a Christian empire until couple of decades after the Armenians became a Christian nation officially. We were the first ones. There's another thing to learn. And anyhow, on and on and on. And so anyhow, I'm, it's getting where you can sense spring is on the way. And I start browsing through Amazon at Catskills and Adirondack titles. My wife and I used to really hang out a lot with friends, family, each other in those areas. And I noticed, again, it's just like the Roman Armenia book. I'm like, well, there's always been books on the enclave, the ethnic enclaves in the Catskills, but not a lot. I mean, but for the Jewish community, which was supercharged with the great resorts and all the super entertainment power that came out of those resorts prior to, Las Vegas. I mean, Jerry Lewis, I'm pretty sure Dean Martin, I don't know, you name somebody, they came out of the Catskills in that time period. And what happened was, though, jet travel became popular and common, and people just, the amount of time it took to drive to the Catskills, another hour you could be on the West Coast or in Florida, admiring palm trees. That hurt, but what happened was summer communities took the place of other types of Catskill going-ons. And, anyhow, so I'm like, wait a minute. My mother and her family, all her cousins, they had a summer home for years in Haines Falls, and it's still there. I've got pictures of it. And, that entire area there between Haines Falls, Tannersville, and Hunter was a large Armenian enclave. So I'm like, wait a minute. Let's write a book about the Armenian Catskills. I mean, it's close to home, and it's quite a story. And, they had two hotels that they frequented, the American Hotel and the Shady Inn Hotel. And during the day, they enjoyed the woodlands, and then at night, they danced the night away. And all their sorrow about the genocide disappeared. It was like a healing place, the Catskills, for the Armenians. And again, there nearby were the Italian enclave, and further north were the Irish. To the south were the Sullivan County Jewish communities with the resorts, and the Austrian community around Lexington, which is just past Hunter and down a little to the south, and that's where Arnold Schwarzenegger worked when he arrived here from Austria in the United States for the first time. He worked at the family resort, which is right there, still there. As a joke, me and my friends would always drive by on the way to this hiking trail and yell out, "We'll be back," like the famous Arnold Schwarzenegger line. He worked there, and the next thing you know, he's the champion of weightlifting. He's a blockbuster action movie actor, and then he ends up as governor of California. Not bad for a guy working at the pool up in the Catskills. And anyhow, the next book is on deck is in the Catskills, the Armenian enclaves, and they were mostly in the Catskills, the Armenians. But as I'm learning now, my cousin Craig, second cousin, who did some fantastic work on the family tree, actually physically going to Central Asia, Armenia, Turkey, tracking down that family tree. And I think he was able to move it back one generation, which is incredible. But he was excited about it. Yeah, he said, my father was up in the Catskills. He was one of the cousins. But my mother, they went to the Rockaways, and I said, hey, that's pretty interesting. I knew that Armenians were going to Asbury Park on the Jersey Shore. I didn't know anything about the Rockaways, and so I said that's good too. That's the Rockaways. I mentioned that to my mother, and she had an experience in the Armenian Rockaways when she was a kid. She got lost, but she was able to reverse engineer her path with her uncle from the Armenian street that was in the Rockaways and the house on the street from the boardwalk. And she went back. The first stop was the taffy store before the boardwalk. And then from there, she went back and back and back. And she ended up walking in the house as everyone is yelling at the uncle who lost her. And he's distraught that he lost my mother, who's a little kid. And there she is standing there, and everyone just, the whole mood changed when they saw my mother. A big Armenian celebration broke out, all the delicacies, one big party. Anyhow, that's the kind of stuff you're going to hear in this book on the Armenians in the Catskills. And so far this year, I've put out 2 books. Moonshot, the Gus Wagner story about my father-in-law and his brother's activities with the Lunar Lander program, which put 12 Americans on the moon. And how, they just would flip hamburgers on the weekends on their charcoal grills. No big deal. And then I had a book prior to that came out about me and Jerry and the LGBT community, all these different groups that made the transition from one millennium to the next millennium. And if you remember, the clocks were supposed to stop, the computers were supposed to crash, we were supposed to all, the whole planet was going to explode. Well, nothing happened, but interesting events did occur in the new millennium, which I don't have to explain. And in addition to the Catskill book, I also have a book coming out about my father's experiences in the U.S. Army Air Corps during World War II in the North Africa campaign. So we got some exciting stuff going on. Thanks for listening, and have a nice day.